lists. And what we really need to do now is try to focus down a little bit. Because if this was the real situation, and it isn't, because we're just working on probably single transboundary problems, and in some cases even single sectors. But if this was the real situation, we might end up with potentially hundreds of ideas. And we can't, within the strategic planning process, we can't put hundreds of ideas into the strategic action programme. This cannot be a wish list. It cannot be some kind of shopping list. It's got to be a targeted, strategic approach that has the opportunity of not only being endorsed, but can be implemented, and that someone can actually pay for the activities that are put down. So the point here is we don't want to end up with a SAP that nobody can pay for, because if it can't be paid for, it won't be implemented. If it isn't implemented, it is essentially a failure. So again, making it targeted and focused is critical here. So, with that in mind, what I want to do now is to look at this idea of prioritising these ideas. And I touched upon that in the previous presentation. So this is the fourth part of this strategic thinking process. So we're going to look at the importance of alternatives, what we mean by that, and the process of prioritising. So firstly then, what do we mean by alternative? Even in the examples you've given here, there are often several different ways of resolving transboundary environmental problems and achieving some form of global benefit. In formulating the SAP, all choices must be available to politicians. The purpose here is to give them as many choices as possible, because you've got more chance of getting some of them through. So a particular solution should not be pre-selected, but equally there will need to be some form of prioritisation. So, we've got a list of over here of, 20, you had 30. What we need to do is go through some kind of process that at least prioritises them and says, from our perspective as a group of experts, we consider that these are the highest priority, medium priority, low priority. But they should all be available for decision makers. I talked about this before lunch. Prioritisation is key to brainstorming and an integral part of any strategic planning process. And I've already covered this in what I've said before, but it's because there are going to be limited resources, there's only going to be a certain amount of money available, and what we need to do here is to start the process of identifying which options we can take further at all of the options that we've got. I've got no idea why I've got that slide there, so I will move on. Okay, so... Oh, I know if I've got it there. I think I do. Okay. So, dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. And this has been predominantly caused by nutrient emissions, predominantly into the Mississippi. A lot of it's from agriculture, and the impact is these seasonal dead zones. Now, this is not unique to the Gulf of Mexico. This is something that's happened in a number of marine systems around the world and in rivers likewise. So there are going to be a choice of strategies for reducing the input of nutrients from sewage into the aquatic system. There are a different set of options that can be taken, and two such options could include: one, the construction of tertiary treatment plants. It's part of a more comprehensive sewage treatment and disposal strategy. That's one avenue you could take. The other avenue you could take is to enhance the natural capacity of the system to remove nutrients through the creation of wetlands. So they're two options. They're both viable options. and they're both used. So how do we choose? How do we choose which option to use? Which is going to be more appropriate for a given situation? And ultimately the choice is going to come down to a balance between the costs and the benefits. And the balance depends on factors that vary from different places. So it's going to have a really strong, be very strongly influenced by local economics, investment costs, and the cost of operation and maintenance. So, for example, if we're going back to those two options, tertiary sewage treatment or increasing wetlands, if we're talking about, I don't know, let's say somewhere in Africa, somewhere on the African coast, the costs of building tertiary treatment will be enormous. And not just only the cost of it, but also you then have the operation and maintenance and the training and so on and so forth. So there's very large costs associated with it, and the benefits are that you're going to get some, you're going to get clean water coming out the other end. On the other hand, wetlands are actually technically not so difficult to put in place. May not be so difficult to put in place, and they won't require the same level of maintenance. So in terms of cost benefits there, from the point of view of a developing country in Africa, sensibly you would think you'd go the wetland route, and that often doesn't happen. Often development banks and donors like big capital projects. But it's just giving you an example there. And always going to be, this whole choice thing is going to be highly influenced by cultural worldviews, highly technical and technological solutions are favoured in some societies, where others prefer a green option. So yeah, you're going to have all of these things are going to come into play. But both options need to be explained to policymakers. No particular lobby can be allowed to insist on its own approach. So it is fair that both options are presented, and ultimately it's going to be down to decision makers based ultimately around costs and benefits. So, 2 steps here. So, I'm getting used to this by now. So the first thing we've done this, we've identified a lot of new ideas. What we want to do now is to prioritise those so that they best meet the needs of the region. So the purpose of this step is to identify the ideas, opportunities and solutions that best meet the needs of the region. And the outcome of this next step is going to be to prioritise a list of ideas, opportunities, whatever they might be. And this will provide the basis for more detailed in-country discussions around this, at probably a much more political level. So how can we do this? So we've got, reasonably comprehensive lists here. So a way of doing this is by setting up a set of criteria around this. And the criteria I've got here on this list are by no means a final list, and things can be added and taken. But ultimately what we want to do is look at these ideas, identify where they link into the causal chain, and where they reference to a specific leverage point. That just gives us a kind of link back to the TDA. Identify who the stakeholders are. Identify any legal, institutional, policy reforms that might be needed. Some of these won't, so that's, in a sense, going to be easier. Some of them are going to require extensive political reform, and that's going to be a lot more difficult and torturous. Estimate the approximate cost. What are the outputs that are going to be? Identify what the outputs are going to be from this. How long is it going to take to implement? Is this a 6-month project, or is it something that's going to take 5 or 10 years? How would you measure success from this? Is it easy to come up with some kind of indicator of success? And then from this set of information, once you've done this for all of them, you can then assign priorities, a high, medium or low, for example. As I said, this is just an example of it. It could do any number of different things here. You could take out a lot of these and make it a lot more simple, or you could make the whole process a lot more complicated. So this is just a filtering exercise, essentially. What we're trying to do is filter out those ideas that are going to be too expensive, going to take too much time, and are not very measurable. For example, from those that are going to be quick wins and are going to have a lot of leverage. So, does everybody get that? You can see where we're going with this now. So, who has got a very full stomach? Who is feeling rather full? Okay. So, but energy, are we feeling reasonably energised, or are we feeling sleepy? Oh, okay. Okay. What we're going to do then, we'll do this exercise, and then after that, I'll have something that's a little bit more fun to do. So let's do this exercise, or do you want to do something fun now? First?
I don't know.
It depends.
It depends.
Define it.
I can't do it because I didn't bring my fun thing with me. It's in the hotel. It's still in the hotel. Tomorrow morning, or even better, maybe Friday morning. I've got something. It's fun. You'll enjoy it. It's not too energetic, but it's fun. Okay. Anyway, so group exercise. What I want you to do then is to review those ideas, opportunities, and solutions. I would suggest you start at the top and you work your way down with the understanding that I'm only giving you a certain amount of time for this, so you can't do them all. Now what I want you to do is to determine what you think might be a cost for this. This is really rough and ready. This is what I think in the UK we call back of the fag packet, back of the cigarette packet. What you think the benefit is. So it's going to have maybe a high cost, a low benefit, or it might have a low cost or high benefit, whatever. And what do you think approximately the time for implementation is going to be? Is this going to be something that's going to take 6 months, or is it going to take 10 years? And then assign a priority, high, low, or medium for each. Do this after you've done a few of these. Okay, and then I'm going to give you. I'm not going to give you 25 minutes, I'm going to start off with 20 minutes. So 20 minutes, okay? So, for example then, if we're looking at this list over here, start at the top, I would say go down about 5 or 6. Go down about 5 or 6, doing approximate cost, benefit, time required for implementation, and then see how much time you've got out of the 20 minutes, and then assign a priority. And if you've still got some time left over, then carry on going down the list. Okay? So, off you go.